Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm pleased to bring you the Chateau Pontet Canet 2016. And so Pontet Canet is a fifth growth wine from the Pauillac region. Very excited to bring you this wine. The name comes from a former owner who was the royal governor of Medoc called Jean Francois de Pontet. During his ownership, him and his family started to buy up various vineyards in Pauillac, including vineyards from the Canet area. So that's where the name comes from. His name, Pontet, and then the area, Canet. So Pontet Canet was rated as an 1855 classification system as a fifth growth wine, and that was noticed by a very important negociant at that time called Herman Cruse. And he bought the estate in 1865, owned it for almost 110 years, and then sold it in 1975 to Guy Tesseron. So it's very unique because this winery only basically has had 3 owners in the last couple hundred years, which is fairly unique for a winery and probably pretty healthy and a good reason why it's very, very well respected winery. Tesseron family were more involved in Cognac, and you do still see that association with Cognac. That's really what they were known for, but of course they also were experienced in Bordeaux, and at that time they also owned Lafon Rochet, which is another winery which I really like. Alfred Tesseron started running the estate in 1994, and during his reign it really improved the winery. He actually brought in a lot of innovation. It was already a very good winery, as the case being it's already fifth growth, but he really elevated it to the new level. And the wines really have shown much better since around 2009, 2010. That's really when they have really went to the next level. We know the 1855 classification system is based on price per barrel. It would not be a fifth growth at this time. It's much more expensive than most fifth growth wines, but even on a quality standpoint, it's probably much better than almost all of the fifth growth wines. Maybe there's an argument with Lynch-Bache. It's situated very nicely. It's situated actually next to Mouton Rothschild, and it became in 2010 the first major Bordeaux winery to earn official organic certification. I had the privilege of actually visiting the winery in 2017, and at that time they had started their using horses in the vineyard. I think they only had about 4 at that time. Now they have much more. So their kind of feeling is when you have horses kind of plow or walk in the vineyards, supposedly the horses never actually step on the same place, and so therefore you get a much more uniform kind of stepping on the ground. It's much lighter than a tractor, and it's much more uniform, and that way it kind of gives more aeration to the soil. And I don't know the mechanics of this, and people will say, oh, come on, does it really make that much difference? I think it does. And these little things that kind of being organic, are treating the soil gently, all these things add up. In it itself, each thing probably is not that important, but when you have this idea of kind of minimal intervention, I think it does make the grapes produce better, and that comes out in the wine. I don't know the reason, but you can, I can quantifiably see that Pontet Canet wines have gotten better, particularly after around 2009. They're just singing all the time now. These wines are just incredible in terms of their intensity of flavors and the fruit they get through it. Starting with the 2017 vintage, all grapes are now destemmed by hand, and they're going kind of backwards, whereas other wineries are going more technological. Actually, Pontet Canet is going more handcrafted. Everything is individualized. Good and bad, I think. The other thing that they have done is that all their power is geothermal power. So All the lighting is done through geothermal pipings. And again, this goes towards this minimalist approach to things. In total, Pontet Canet has 81 hectares of vineyard, which is quite large, planted 62% Cabernet Sauvignon, 32% Merlot, 4% Cabernet Franc, and 2% Petit Verdot. And the terroir is deep gravel with clay and limestone soils. The original vats were constructed in the 1800s, but the whole facility has been completely overhauled under Alfred Tesseron's kind of reign. And I'll just mention that he has, over the last couple of years now, turned over the reins of management to his daughter Justine, and I had the privilege of meeting both of them in 2017, and subsequently had the privilege of seeing Mr. Tesseron at another function, I think in 2021 in Vancouver. So he is a pioneer in this type of minimalist kind of agriculture, and so you know, really has put Pontet Canet at another level. After harvesting, the grapes are sorted completely by hand, they're destemmed manually, and there is no electricity used in the process at all. When they vinify the wines, they are vinified in 11 conical shaped wooden vats and 37 concrete tanks. So again, viewers and subscribers will know that I always ask how many tanks they actually have to vinify their wines or their grapes. The reason being is the less vats or storage vessels that you have, then the less that you can sort out different plots. So for aging, they use a combination of French oak barrels and also these amphora jars. And I've seen that, and amphora is kind of made from clay that's used from the soils at Pontet Canet. And I know it sounds quirky, but I have found that most wines that are kind of stored or aged in amphora, for some reason, I don't know the scientific reason, seem to be a bit fresher if you taste them compared to vintages that are not stored in amphora. Again, that could be just me, that could be just psychological, but that's what I find, that it does bring a brightness and a freshness to the wine for some reason. So the explanation from the winery is that they think that those amphora jars add minerality to the wine and they soften it a little bit. And supposedly when we were there at the winery, they told us that actually it softens it to a point where they, generally speaking, in their testing, it makes the wines drink earlier by about 3 years. So it's kind of neat. And they produce about 25,000 cases of wine per year. I was privileged actually with this vintage to drink the wine at the winery in 2017. I thought it was stunning at that time. My notes were that it was really fresh, very vibrant, and in fact, we tasted it in the same trip with the 2016 Mouton, which was supposed to be the wine of that vintage, which was 100 points, I think, by many of the wine critics. And most of our group thought the 16 Pontet Canet was better in terms of the long-term ageability and the long-term life cycle of that wine. So it's really interesting now to drink it again after all these years. The blend on the 2016 vintage was 65% Cabernet Sauvignon, 30% Merlot, 3% Cabernet Franc, and 2% Petit Verdot. It was aged 16 months in 50% oak, and I think 35% in amphora, and the rest I think in kind of aged barreled oak barrels. I just want to talk about now why I drink kind of young wines. And people will always say, Trophy, this is too young to drink. Well, I think it's really important to actually taste wines when they're young. I'm not saying you should drink all wines young, but you do have to have experience. And a perfect example is this wine. I tasted it, what we would call entrepreneurial, when it first came out in 2017, had a chance to taste it. Now I get to taste it now. After a number of years, it's still quite young, but you can follow the evolution of that wine. And the only way that you're going to be able to tell qualities of wine, which is what most wine critics do, is to kind of say, well, this is like something else I tasted in the past. But if you do not taste wines young or entrepreneur, which most consumers don't have the opportunity to do, then so you can only taste them when they're released, you won't know how they trend or how their life cycle is. And so I think it's a really useful tool to drink wines young. I'm not saying drink your whole allocation of it, but I think it's important to at least open a bottle to see how it is. And you'll be surprised. Some wines do drink better young, or are more accessible young. And this is, I think, one of these examples. So what have I done with this wine? I've actually had this a number of times already. A couple of times it has been in, I've Corvin the bottle, and the Corvin worked spectacularly. Now I've had this out of the bottle, had it kind of open, so it should be well aired at this point. So let's, and I can just let you know that it has improved as I've aired it out. So when I first drank it, I thought it was okay wine. But the more you drink it, the more lovely it gets, and the more you're thinking, wow, that is a really good wine. So give this wine time because it is still young. So let's kind of smell and taste it. So on the smell, when I first opened the bottle, it was just a lot of oak, and it was a little bit muted. Now, when it's kind of fully aerated, it's got a lovely anise, floral elements, kind of black plums, black cherries, but quite pleasant in terms of its aromas. On the taste, again, the wine gets better and better as you let it breathe. And it's got everything. First of all, the mid palate is great. Lots of nice tannins. I wouldn't say aggressive, but very integrated tannins. Very balanced. And this is, even when I drank it in 2017, that was my note. It was really, really balanced. And it still has that great balance in this wine, and everything is kind of in sync. So the fruit, lots of dark core fruit, good tannins, not aggressive tannins, not grainy tannins, very smooth tannins. It's got a little bit of a mintiness or bitter greenness in it, which I like. Actually, it's not a flaw in my opinion. Not vegetatal, but just a little bit of that. It's almost like that Cabernet Franc, that little bit of that biter edge at the end of this. It's almost a cross between glycerin and graphite. That's what I would say. It's almost that type of, so it probably has a little bit of glycerin, a little bit of graphite, and then that toasty oak at the end with some charcoal and tobacco. So great aromas and taste on this wine. Again, it gets better and better as you drink it. When I initially opened this bottle, I thought, well, maybe 92, 93 points. Now it's going up to about 95 points. In my books, it's probably 95 or 96 points. I'm going to go with 96 points. This is going to be a lovely wine. Right now, it's spectacular, but I don't think it's even close to its peak. I think we need about another 10 years on this wine to get to its peak, but it's going to be able to be drinking well throughout its life cycle. And the key to this wine is the balance. It is very, very well balanced. One of the best balanced wines I've had young. And again, I think better than almost any other 2016 Bordeaux that I've seen in terms of the balance. And that's why it can drink all along its life cycle. And so, wow, this is to me, it's just a wonderful wine and really needs a little bit of time to let it breathe. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Until next time, happy drinking.